they got a taste of what it was like tonight. Championship level football on both sides of the ball. These two teams could play 2 more times when all said and done this year. SEC championship, college football playoff. And Alabama, this new coaching staff showed why they were hired. Kalen DeBoer and company only lost 12 games coming into this game at Alabama and jumped on Georgia early, 21-0, crowds in a frenzy. Look, true freshman making plays, the Xavier Brown interception, the Ryan Williams dazzling 75-yard catch there at the end of the game. I talked to Justin Hill on 300 Edge, who committed to Alabama on July 3rd over Ohio State. Oregon, USC, said, I can't see myself anywhere else. Talked to Michael Carroll. He said the environment is crazy. The thing that excites him is he can't wait to join this brotherhood. You know, Jaden Harmon, he's a linebacker committed to Tennessee at one point, was committed to Alabama. He was there tonight, said it was electric and crazy. You know, talked about Alabama being an elite program that's clearly on top of college football, and talked about the player development you can get there. You know, the number one linebacker in the country, Tyler Atkinson, he talked about Coach DeBoer before the game, bringing him into his office, about to play the biggest game of the season for any team, but had time to do some recruiting today. That resonated with Tyler Atkinson and his family. The number 2 safety in the country, Braylon Womack, was there. Said that the standard is still the same at Alabama. And Max Suter, the number 5 tight end in the land, said it was unreal, wildest game he's ever been to. He loved how much the tight end was involved. He's going to be back for the Iron Bowl. Certainly Alabama's going to land some commitments from this game tonight. Reaction is going to be coming in as I'm talking to you here.
All right. So, Steve, when we watched this game, we saw Ryan Williams really stand out, make some plays. What do you think that means for some of the uncommitted targets that were on campus? And we're going to talk about some of these uncommitted guys, but seeing a true freshman like a Ryan Williams do that in prime time, what does that do for recruiting?
Well, it shows recruits that the best players are going to play no matter what grade they're in and no matter how old they are. Ryan Williams is 17 years old, 75-yard catch, making plays with Malachi Starks, a future first rounder, in the vicinity all night. Fabulous performance. Xavier Brown, again, another true freshman from California, comes cross country, makes the game-winning interception, was out there on an island all night. Guys from the transfer portal making instant impacts right away for Alabama. So I think it just speaks to how prepared Alabama can get you to play in ball games like this under this new coaching staff.
Yeah. And we saw some of the uncommitted targets on campus were also flip targets, right? You had Derek Smith committed to Auburn, Ivan Taylor and Andrew Olish, Michigan commitments, Jaden Harmon committed to Tennessee. The list goes on. Let's talk about Derek Smith. He's an interesting one because Derek Smith flipped his commitment from Alabama to Auburn. Now, as we sit here, you know, another Auburn loss, a really exciting Alabama win. Could Derek Smith be flipping back to the Tide anytime soon?
Well, it certainly wouldn't surprise me. It's been a recruitment that's been fluid. He committed to Alabama at one point pretty quickly after meeting the new coaching staff, has since obviously flipped to Auburn, but hasn't stopped communicating with Alabama at all. It wouldn't surprise me at all if they landed Derek Smith. Also wouldn't surprise me if they ultimately flipped Ivan Taylor, the Michigan commit that's been on campus a couple times in his process. At one point looked like he was going to end up at Alabama, but Michigan was able to change that tide when he was at a Notre Dame commit. Mason Dunn, on 300 cornerback, committed to Ole Miss. I think Alabama's in a good spot for him as well. We'll see who else, but those are two guys committed elsewhere, along with Derek Smith, who you definitely can't rule out Alabama for moving forward. When you look at that list, they're battling Notre Dame for Antavius Richardson. Antavius Richardson was at Notre Dame last weekend. This was his second game visit at Alabama. He's having a fantastic senior year. And then Andrew Olesh, tight end, is a need for the Crimson Tide. Marshall Pritchett's another target that is committed to North Carolina that Alabama's in on at the tight end position. But Andrew Olesh is very dynamic. Notre Dame's trying to get involved there too. But Alabama could hit at a high batting average from that group.
Yeah, really interesting. We're going to talk a little bit more Alabama, but from a Georgia perspective, from a Georgia recruiting perspective, I mean, the Dawgs lost, but they showed a lot of grit. I mean, they didn't give up. Carson Beck leads the charge in the second half. The Georgia Bulldogs took the lead in the second half, albeit it was only for 14 seconds, but Georgia did have the lead. Talk about this from a Georgia recruiting perspective. What's the takeaway here?
Status quo. Look, Georgia's culture for their football program, the amount of care that these players have and the pride that they have wearing that jersey is second to none in college football. And when you look at last year when Georgia played in a bowl game that they didn't want to be at, Florida State playing the Seminoles in a bowl game that really didn't mean much for the program's goals. Every year it's national championship or bust. But to still be able to go out and represent the Georgia program and smash a Florida State team that didn't want to be there, I think it shows you clearly the difference in the cultures of those programs. And Georgia has an elite culture, and they did not roll over and die when Alabama jumped on them up 21-0 at the end of the first.
Mm-hmm.
Carson Beck nearly throws a pick six in the second quarter that would have put them down 5 touchdowns, maybe. It seems like it was so long ago, but they hung in there and battled to the end and even took the lead for 11 seconds there in the fourth quarter. And I think people would come out of this game and say that Georgia still has as good a chance as any to win a national championship. They're still my pick to finish with On3's number 1 ranked recruiting class with what they have out there on the board. And again, it's Nick Saban teams, Bryce Young and company. They didn't play in the national championship. They still showed up for those bowl games, those New Year's 6 bowl games, and played at a high level. Same thing with Georgia. And in the era of all the opt-outs for the NFL draft and getting ready for your future on Sundays, these guys that go to Georgia and these guys that go to Alabama, it is completely different. And no other school in college football right now can relate to that. Mm-hmm. And you have all these fans that empathize with those decisions. And I'm not saying those decisions are right or wrong, but I think it showed up in this ball game with how hard Georgia fought and the amount of pride that they showed to stay in this ball game and take the lead. And I look forward to these two teams potentially playing again, not once, but twice. Certainly Texas is going to try and have something to say about that among, a couple other SEC programs, but Alabama, Georgia, that rivalry is still as strong as ever. Swap out Saban, you put in Kalen DeBoer. He's only lost 12 games as a head coach. Showed why he got the job. Alabama was ready to play. And then Kirby Smart in Georgia, they're not going anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Alabama fans, tap in and hit subscribe right now. Jump on board. What an exciting win it was for the Tide. We're going to talk a little bit more. The chat wants to know, what's up with Justus Terry? There was rumors that he was going to be there, but then it sounded like his high school game got rescheduled. He's the one target, the one 5-star target that is a definitive Alabama versus Georgia battle. Steve, was he on hand for this game?
No, I was under the impression that his game got moved. Joe Hastings, our Alabama writer, had that story the other day, so I stopped.
Well, he doesn't need to be at a game like this for it to have an impact on him. So if you're Justus Terry and you're watching your 2 favorite teams duke it out like this, what are you thinking?
Well, I think for Alabama, it's a missed opportunity to not have them in the stadium and not have them in that locker room after the game. Mother Nature getting in the way of a potential move that they could have made to get him on campus, get him around all the Alabama commits, the Keelan Russells and Justin Hills and Michael Carrolls of the world that returned, see how you fit in with those guys. That's big, especially when you're playing from behind in a recruitment. I think Georgia's the leader for Justus Terry. So Alabama looking to gain some inches in that recruitment. They definitely showed where this program is at tonight under this new coaching staff. He's got a great relationship with Freddie Roach. Several Alabama staffers still talk to Justus Terry and his parents. But until I hear different, I still like Georgia there.
Yeah. All right. Alabama fans, Georgia fans, tap in with us. Let us know how you're feeling after this game. Bama fans, what a win. Georgia fans, your team never gave up. Had to be a good performance from both squads from a recruiting angle. So tap in with us. Let us know where you guys stand. Comment section below. All right, Steve, let's head down to Orlando. We got to talk about the matchup between UCF and Colorado. This was a thriller, a Big 12 showdown between these two programs. Probably the most complete game by Colorado, I'd say, in the Coach Prime era. 48-21 win over UCF. And I'll be honest, it didn't feel like it was that close. Steve, hundreds of recruits were on campus for this one. Did Colorado come into Orlando and steal the show?
There's no question. They're one of the talks of college football coming out of this ball game. Deion Sanders, the very charismatic Deion Sanders, was a loss of words in his post-game interview. He was so proud of his football team, so proud of his coaching staff. And we know that he is good for a big flip or two every cycle on the recruiting trail. And I know if you tune into the Inside Scoop Wilfong Whip Around, I say that all the time. So it's more like the anticipation of who's it going to be this cycle. They got us warmed up with Antonio Branch, 4-star defensive back, was committed to Penn State, visited Colorado last weekend, flipped his commitment to the Buffaloes early this week. Byron Baldwin is an on 300 cornerback committed to 5-0 Indiana. I think Colorado has the momentum for him. Penn State offers Byron Baldwin after they lose Antonio Branch. So they're trying to make a move, but I still like where Colorado stands for Byron Baldwin. Carde Smith is an offensive tackle committed to USC. He was at Colorado last weekend. He's trying to get back to USC. Colorado's full court press on Carde Smith. They are recruiting him like they recruited Jordan Seaton in the last cycle. He's physically ready to play. They're going to have some big upcoming recruiting weekends against Cincinnati and Kansas State. So it'll be interesting to see what elite players come. And winning a ball game like that, it's going to raise the eyebrow, raise the interest level of someone that maybe hasn't even having any dialogue with the Colorado staff right now. Deion Sanders is always one phone call away from a blue chipper of potentially moving that needle. Julian Lewis, quarterback commit, was at USC this weekend, 5-star, committed to the Trojans. Colorado's had him on campus 3 times this year. They're trying to get him to Cincinnati or Kansas State. 5-star receiver Dallas Wilson committed to Oregon. Our colleague Chad Simmons had the story this morning that Dallas Wilson talked to Deion Sanders before this game. He was at the UCF game. Coach Prime encouraged me to come watch the show. He told Chad Simmons he certainly saw a show from Travis Hunter, the leading candidate for the Heisman Trophy this year. No one playing more snaps, no one more impactful throughout the course of a whole game than Travis Hunter. They're going to try and flip LA Jesse Harold from LSU. He's a top 100 edge rusher in the On3 rankings. He's been at UCF twice this year, including today. Colorado wants to make a move there. They're going to take a big swing at 5-star receiver Jerome Miles. You got Samari Reed, a receiver committed to Ole Miss right now that they have interest in. And I talked to Cornell Farrakhan Jr., who's the jewel of the Colorado class currently. And he's like, it's special because the whole world is against us. Just sending a message that Colorado can compete really stood out. Got to keep doing their thing and proving the world wrong. Then he pointed towards the offensive line, how they stepped up and played big today. He said, I love seeing that. A lot of people tried to bash them, and those boys got out there and played like dogs. They did in all 3 facets, played great on special teams, made some big kicks, made some big plays on offense. UCF was on their heels all night. Colorado getting a big win for them. They're 4-1 right now, and certainly able to point towards some success that they're having now, bouncing back from that Nebraska loss.
Yeah, and I love what Coach Prime did in leading up to this matchup, reaching out to a lot of the recruits like a Dallas Wilson that he expected to be on campus. Kind of like I said, Colorado did steal the show here, and they made this big weekend for UCF a big recruiting weekend for Colorado. You did put in while we're here, you did put in a UCF recruiting prediction machine pick in for a top 2026 quarterback.
Yeah, Landon Duckworth, former South Carolina commit. He's been to UCF a bunch. They've done a great job recruiting him. Coach Malzahn, Coach Henshaw and company. They've done a great job recruiting Landon Duckworth. And I think that they're the team to beat. And UCF, they showed what kind of atmosphere that they can have for big games on their campus. It's an exciting place to play. And it just wasn't their afternoon.
Yeah, now Colorado, I believe they head up into the bye. This would be a great time to do some high school recruiting if you're the Colorado coaching staff. I know you hit on some names like a Julian Lewis, but during the bye week, not talking about Coach Prime himself, but do we expect the Colorado coaching staff to hit the trail and do some high school recruiting?
Yeah, I think that they'll have some coaches out on the road. Javian Hilson's a name that was at the top of that UCF visit list that wasn't in my post game article about Colorado that you can find on 3, but Colorado has offered him a scholarship as well. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see who they recruit. I don't think any
Right.
prospect is off limits for them. And for a lot of these young men, they're going to get some intrigue and get some interest. Then it's getting them to campus. And then, like, it's win some, lose some. But I think that the more high school prospects that Colorado swings at, Deion Sanders hits at a high rate. They don't offer that many kids. They offer way less kids than Dabo Sweeney and Clemson from the high school ranks. They do a good job of landing a lot of the guys that they hone in on. And again, a win like this, a performance like this on national television, 3:30 spotlight game on Fox. I'd be surprised if they didn't have the biggest rating of that block of
Mhm.
games, particularly with Notre Dame and Louisville being on Peacock. I think it was a heck of an afternoon for the Buffaloes. Alabama is my winner of the weekend, but Colorado is certainly not far behind with the showing that they had.
Yeah, Travis Hunter, Shador, they went in there, they did what they had to do. Travis Hunter put on, as we said, heading into this game, I said I felt like he was the best player in college football. I don't think he
We
did
both did.
anything to
We
dispel
both.
those rumors. What's that?
I said we both did. He's the Heisman Trophy winner. How
We
can you?
did, but who did you pick in the game? Because I was going Colorado all the way.
I picked Georgia in the other, or excuse me, I picked Alabama in the other game though. So we're both 1-1 today.
Hey, not bad. Hey, but Colorado fans tap in. What a win over UCF in front of hundreds of recruits. It just feels like Colorado is about to surge on the recruiting trail as well. So talk to Steve and I. Let us know, comment section below. Who is your top target at the high school level? Let us know, comment section
One more
below.
thing I want to add on Colorado, so don't turn this video off.
Yeah, that's right. All right.
Julian Lewis is obviously their top quarterback target. They know they need to land a quarterback target. So I could see them pivoting somewhere soon too, depending on what continues to happen with Julian Lewis. So it would be interesting to see what other elite quarterbacks they take a swing at. And then LA Jesse Harold just got back to me. He wasn't able to make the game today, so he wasn't there to watch Colorado's performance in person. But again, the LSU commit, he is a prospect that Colorado is going to try and make a run at as this cycle continues.
All right. You can feel it happening right now. The shift is going from, it was all about the transfer portal in the offseason, but I think the next couple months for Colorado, we're going to be talking a lot about high school recruiting. All right. Let's head down to Austin. We are going to talk about Texas's first ever SEC game, a 35-13 win over Mississippi State, a memorable second start for Arch Manning. He looked sharp, throwing for 324 yards, 3 touchdowns, and there were some notable visitors on campus. Steve, one of the big names that I want to talk to you about is Dalen McCutcheon because he's committed to Florida State. But last weekend, he visited Texas A&M. This weekend, while the Florida State Seminoles were in Texas losing to SMU, Dalen McCutcheon was in Austin watching the Longhorns whoop up on Mississippi State. What are you hearing on wide receiver Dalen McCutcheon committed to FSU, taking a look at some other programs?
Well, he's obviously still working through his process and trying to get a sense of where he truly should sign come December 4th in the early signing period. And wide receivers, it's easy to see why they're attracted to Texas in that offense. Steve Sarkisian schemes great players open. They have a tremendous amount of success. It's a fun offense to play in. Receivers that play for Steve Sarkisian hear their names called high in the NFL draft. True freshmen are able to walk in and play right away, like a Ryan Wingo. So they put their young players in position to be very successful as well. We've seen that throughout the course of his career. Texas is rolling right now. They got a chance to make a push towards that number 1 class in the country. When you start talking about guys like Michael Terry, 5-star athlete still out there for them, Javian Hilson, number 1 edge rusher remaining on their board, number 3 edge rusher in the country. He's trending towards Texas on the on 3 RPM. That Alabama, Georgia game tonight. Georgia could play in another one of those in a couple weeks in Austin. And the recruit section is going to be just as strong as the one that we just saw at Alabama. It was absolutely elite in Tuscaloosa. So many recruits excited to get to Austin for that Texas-Georgia game. 5-star Michael Terry will be there for that one. But Texas, certainly able to impress Dalen McCutcheon tonight with what he saw, I would imagine. But that's every week with Texas and their offense right now.
Yeah, no doubt. And what do you think? Texas A&M also have a shot to flip McCutcheon?
Yeah, absolutely. They got a nice win too today against Arkansas. They're 4-1 right now. They're building, but Mike Elko and that coaching staff are doing a good job of quickly resonating with recruits and high school programs in the state. And he had a good time at Texas A&M and sees a need for a player like himself to get in there and make an early impact. Texas A&M is missing dynamic guys. Kelshawn Johnson, he's committed to Texas A&M right now. He's one of the fastest receivers in the state. He could flip to Texas. The Longhorns aren't going away there either. So it'll be interesting to see what receivers Texas finishes with this cycle. We like them for Michael Terry. You could play running back, receiver, H-back, tight end. And then they're in there for Dalen McCutcheon, trying to flip Kelshawn from Texas A&M. And, a lot will be decided as these games on the field are decided as we continue through the season.
Yeah, and a new report today on our Inside Texas site saying Riley Pettijohn, the 5-star linebacker, committed to Ohio State. He's another name that's expected to be at that October 19th game. We already mentioned 5-star athlete Michael Terry for the Georgia game, but Riley Pettijohn, he's committed to Ohio State, and it's been it's been silent, really, between Pettijohn and Texas. Now he's popping up for this October 19th date. Is this a big nothing burger, or is this something to watch, down the road with Riley Pettijohn in Texas?
No, we talked about it right after he committed to Ohio State. And in the end of summer, we said Texas is going to come back around on these elite players in state that they missed out the first time. I would imagine they'll take another swing at DeCorian Moore. Also, Riley Pettijohn has kept the lines of communication open with all his finalists. So that also includes Texas A&M and USC. Time will tell how real any of that is because he's very happy with his commitment to Ohio State. But Texas, they're anticipating having a championship caliber year, and they aren't going to go away on some of these elite players in state that they lost out on the first time.
Yeah, I agree. Double back. All right, Texas fans, let us know, comment section below, how you guys feeling about another big win, your first SEC win. How you feeling about your first SEC win and some of these flip targets we talked about? Let us know, comment section below. All right, Steve, let's go all the way out west. We're going to talk USC recruiting. Number 13, USC rallied from a 10-point halftime deficit to blank Wisconsin in the second half and pull away for a 38-21 victory. Defense, they pitched a shutout in the second half. And there's some important recruits on campus. Julian Lewis, Shamar Arnaud, Jaden Perlotti, along with some USC targets as well. But let's just start with Julian Lewis. His first time back on campus this season. Good to see Lewis back in LA. Good to see Lewis on the sideline. What are you thinking here with Julian Lewis and the USC Trojans?
Same as I've been saying to you in interviews on Inside Scoop and Wiltfong Whip for a while. I think that USC is still in strong position to maintain his commitment and get his signature on December 4th. Now, with that, he's starting to have dialogue again with Auburn over the last couple weeks. He talks to Indiana regularly. The Hoosiers are trying to get him to campus for the Michigan game, the 5-0 Hoosiers. They haven't been 5-0 since Nixon was in the White House. And then Colorado, again, they're trying to get him back for either Cincinnati or Kansas State. But the opportunity to play for Lincoln Riley, what he's done historically with quarterbacks, not only on the field, developing them into the first pick of the draft, the Heisman Trophy winner, but just how he keeps his quarterbacks upright and healthy historically is another thing that the Lewis campus said to me in the past. The way USC's recruiting wideouts, they have a very strong wide receiver class with Jerome Miles, Corey Sims, Romero Eisen and company. So that's an exciting group to play with. You got a chance to spend some time with Elijah Vacona today, an offensive line commit who had a fabulous visit. So he's getting to know those guys. And then USC's recruiting at a high level on defense right now. He's built a relationship with Jakeem Stewart, their top defensive line target that's still out there. He's trying to reclassify On3's number one recruit in 2026. He always mentions Julian Lewis, and his relationship is another reason why he likes USC. USC, they battled back, dominated the second half, got a big win today. I think they're showing a lot of grit as a football program. They battled Michigan last week on the road, came back, didn't have the first half they wanted to, but pitched a shutout in the second half. Miller Moss threw for over 300 yards, had a couple touchdown passes, had a rushing score. And I think that, again, USC is in a good spot for Julian Lewis.
Yeah, Miller Moss, really tough performance on Saturday. Now, let's talk about some of these uncommitted targets that were on campus as well. And I'm mainly looking right at the top of that list. Floyd Blucard, fresh off that decommitment from Oklahoma. He's from Miami, Florida, but he's back on the market. And one of his first visits after decommitting from Oklahoma is out to USC. They also had Benny Patterson. So we know, and he's committed to Cincinnati. We know that USC is trying to beef up that defensive line. You mentioned Jakeem Stewart, the 5-star that who might reclassify. But what about Floyd Blucard? I mean, he was one of Oklahoma's prized commitments. Now he's back on the market, position in need for USC.
Talk to a source that spent time with Floyd that says everything still looks good there. I love my prediction of Floyd Blucard to USC. Benny wasn't able to make it to USC this weekend because of the hurricane. His game was rescheduled to Saturday. They had a massive win. Castle had a huge win over powerhouse Evansville Rights in the Rights Bowl. So it was well worth it for him to stay home and get that win against the powerhouse high school program. I think he'll be at USC for the Penn State game in 2 weeks. So USC obviously creating a great deal of intrigue with him, from Coach Eric Henderson to Coach Sean Nua and Lincoln Riley. And then those three juniors that you had listed there, I talked to RJ Sermons and I talked to Deshaun Rideau today, and I have predicted both of them to USC on the On3 RPM this evening. RJ Sermons, his father, obviously played for USC. I talked to both of them. They continue to love the trajectory of this defense under Coach Deonton Lynn and the way that these guys are playing in the secondary. And then Deshaun Rideau at one point was a heavy UCLA lean. Chad Simmons and I both hearing that USC gaining momentum in that recruitment. This was his second game visit at USC. He's actually at UCLA tonight. A lot of kids able to hit a double with USC in the noon slot for them, and then UCLA playing later in the day in the Rose Bowl against Oregon. But USC has the momentum. Deshaun Foster and company are going to have to try and get it back.
Yeah, and I saw you put that recruiting prediction machine pick in for RJ Sermons. I mean, I think 5 or 6 weeks ago, I would have said he's all Oregon. So I think that's another one that USC has made up a considerable amount of ground on just by having a great start to their season.
Well, I think this was his third time seeing him play. He was at the LSU game in Las Vegas, and I talked to him and his dad after that, and I was strongly considering putting the pick in, just having that conversation with them. They walked out of Allegiant Stadium, I believe it is, or wherever the Raiders play, with a great amount of pride for USC. And look, Lincoln Riley's been telling guys like Jakeem Stewart and RJ Sermons and defensive prospects, look, the way that we played defense this past year is not the way we're going to play defense in the future. We're going to get it fixed. And he went out and hired arguably the best defensive coaching staff in the country on paper. When you talk about what some of these guys have accomplished, from Deonton Lynn, new defensive coordinator, Coach Entz, the linebackers coach, is a national champion, head coach on the FBS level, Coach Doug Belk in the secondary. You bring in Eric Henderson from the NFL, who's coached guys like Aaron Donald and won a Super Bowl with the Rams. You have Sean Nua in there. All of a sudden, this is an exciting coaching staff. And you see how hard they're playing, how physical they're playing. It's been a long time since we've seen USC be a team that can be tone setting on the defensive side of the ball. We're seeing it. Recruits are seeing it. And with that, they're really starting to trend with really good players on the defensive side of the ball. The strength of their class right now is quarterback, receiver, and defense in 2025. And they have a top 10 class in 2026, and they're off and running on the defensive side of the ball in that cycle as well. And again, I like where they stand with RJ Sermons.
All right. Well, we're going to definitely be talking more USC Trojans throughout the week, but USC fans, talk to us. Exciting start, big visit weekend. How you guys feeling? Let us know. Comment section below. Oh boy. All right, Steve, we got to head out to the Plains, talk some Auburn recruiting as Oklahoma wins 27-21 after leading 21-10 midway through the fourth quarter. It all fell apart. Oklahoma scores a touchdown. They cut the lead 21-16. with around 8 minutes left. And then they pick off Peyton Thorne. You know the rest. Touchdown, 4 minutes to go, 24-21. Oklahoma wins it, 27-21. Deuce Knight, the big story here is Deuce Knight took his official visit to Auburn. You said it best in the week on the Wilt Fong Whip Around that Deuce Knight has season tickets. I mean, he's been to 4 or 5 home games already. They might as well punch him a dorm room key. Deuce Knight, though, this visit is a little different. He's not going to go home tonight. An official visit, they stay the night. He's going to wake up. He'll have breakfast with the staff. He'll meet. The family will be there. So this is a big visit for Deuce Knight, but they lose. I mean, does that kind of take away from some of the excitement, some of the experience?
Well, it absolutely does, in the sense that, the players aren't maybe as much fun to hang out with following another tough loss.
Yeah, Saturday night isn't as fun after a loss.
How he views Auburn, he's seeing these interceptions that they keep throwing week in and week out. He's got a front row seat for it. And so how does he look at it? He could look at it a multiple of ways. I think if you're Auburn, you're hoping he's looking at it from the lens of, I could come in and make an impact right away. Now,
yeah.
I think no matter what, Auburn's got to go to the portal and get a 1-year guy.
Yeah.
And
if you're Notre Dame, I think the defense you play is, hey, look, there's no development. You're there on the sidelines. You're watching these quarterbacks throw pick after pick after pick, week after week after week. Where's the development from the QB guru? So, yeah, I think based on your reporting, if Deuce Knight makes it back to Notre Dame, I mean, I can't rule him out.
Hugh Freeze has a track record of great offense. So they're not playing offensively the way that he would like to play this year, but you can't just throw away his history and say that he's not a good offensive mind and his quarterbacks don't light it up schematically. I mean, Jim Harbaugh had a terrible year at Michigan. Several years later, won the national championship. Brian Kelly had a 4-win season at Notre Dame and then ripped off like 5 wins in a row and 2 college playoff appearances. My point is that Hugh Freeze is a good football coach that typically has good offenses. How does he see it? Is he going to visit Notre Dame for the Stanford game in a couple weeks?
Yeah,
if he does that, then it's not a foregone conclusion he's going to Auburn anymore, right? So there was a time coming into the season when it looked like he was a heavy lean to flip. Auburn has since started having more dialogue with other quarterbacks. It's obvious that Deuce Knight is their number one target at the position, but even they know that like anything can happen in recruiting. So even though there's been indication over the last month plus that Auburn's in a great position to ultimately land this young man's signature and his commitment, it hasn't happened yet. And so if he goes and visits Notre Dame for the Stanford game, anything can happen. And Ole Miss, again, they're still lurking, trying to recruit him. So we'll see. We'll see.
We will see. I asked you this a couple weeks ago, and I'll ask you again. How much does winning matter with Auburn recruiting? Are they, at a point where they have to win games, or they risk this class falling apart to some degree?
Well, I think they've done a good job from a relationship standpoint of building the correct bonds with these kids to keep most of them in the fold. But the season's got a long way to go, man, and it could get worse, right? It could get better. They've been in all these ball games they've lost, but it could get worse. The schedule is not getting any easier for them. Today was a very winnable game against a true freshman quarterback at home, and they about had it all sewed up until you throw a pick six. And I don't even want to look at Peyton Thorne's interception column on the statistics because that's where it begins. The defense has played pretty well. Hugh Freeze is going to get a lot of time at Auburn. You don't have to worry about a coaching change. Again, his track record says that he's going to figure it out as a coach. And then Auburn historically has played for championships under a couple different head football coaches. So they're just in a rut right now. But the good thing is their recruiting class is still strong and it's holding together. And a lot of blue chippers are showing interest and they're getting guys on campus every weekend.
All right, speaking of one blue chipper that's showing interest, running back Usman Kroma, number 5 running back in the country, was expected to make his decision today, but he didn't he's going to delay it a week. What do you make of that? And I mean, I definitely thought heading into the weekend it was going to be Auburn if Usman Kroma made his decision. I felt, Auburn, Georgia, but I was leaning Auburn. What does the delay mean to you in his decision?
Yeah, coming into the weekend, I thought it was going to be Auburn also. So can't be good news for the Tigers. It might be status quo
Right.
news,
Right.
But
Right.
Georgia, Florida State got pummeled at SMU today, your Knowles. But they're in there. And then Georgia, I always thought if they hit the gas and turned up the heat, they could land Usman Kroma. I talked to a source around Athens this week about Kroma, and I think they thought that they had as good a chance as anyone to land him. Tennessee still recruiting Usman Kroma, trying to recruit a couple different backs to add to their talented recruiting class. But Chroma's kind of been a fluid recruitment. He's, if he did a couple different things, I wouldn't be surprised. But I felt good about Auburn coming into the week.
Do you think he will make a decision in the next 6 or 7 days? Do you think he will?
Yeah, he has a new decision date. So I think
I know, but
I mean, could he postpone again? I mean, yeah, I guess, but why put out a second date so quickly?
Yeah, I don't know. All right. Well, we'll see what happens, but Oklahoma wins it 27-21. It was a really weird game for Auburn. They just at times you thought they were going to get that offense going and it kept stalling. They never really sustained anything. When looking at the quarterback position, I mean, it's all about how you sell it. And do you think that, hey, I mean, this is what they're paid the big bucks to do. You got to recruit through adversity. Do you think that this weekend they're pushing to get Deuce Knight to finally just go over the edge and flip his commitment?
Yeah, but I also think it's because from the lens of, look, we have to land a talented high school quarterback. So if you've been here 5 times since the end of July. So
yeah,
what are we waiting on here? And it doesn't mean that it can't be, well, look, I want to go back to Notre Dame. All right. Well, that doesn't mean we're stopping recruiting you, but we're going to have to ramp it up with some other people just in case you don't come, right? Like it's big boy recruiting. You don't just quit, even so. But I do think that they would like to have some clarity on, are you going to shut it down and flip to us? And if you're going to go visit Stanford, I wouldn't be surprised if they try to get another quarterback on campus.
Yeah, they've got to. They got a problem right now, and it's at the quarterback position. Deuce Knight.
It's the problem. And when they interviewed Brent Venables after the game, I didn't know if he was, when they asked him what they did to come back and win that game, I didn't know if he was just going to say, well, Peyton Thorne threw the ball to us. He didn't say that, of course, but that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. That was some of that Sooner magic at the end of that one. And they get a big road SEC win. Now, Auburn fans, talk to Steve and I and let us know, comment section below, how do you guys feel right now? I mean, the recruiting class doesn't have to take the same trajectory as the season. Me and Steve, we've covered this a long time. We've seen some pretty bad seasons coupled with a really great recruiting class. So, Auburn fans, talk to us. The sky is not falling, at least not yet. Let us know. Comment section below how we feeling after this latest loss. And what do you think about flipping Deuce Knight? Let us know. Comment section below. All right, Steve, that brings us close to the end of the Recruit Reaction Show. I know Miami had a big game on Friday night. That doesn't really make Recruit Reaction because they didn't have a ton of recruits there because a lot of high school players play on Friday night, but they did have cornerback Ben Hanks on campus, and you spoke to Ben Hanks. He's committed to the Florida Gators. What do you think of him showing up in Coral Gables yet again?
Well, I spoke to his dad. His dad was not with him at the game, but he did say that his son wanted to go. Miami's playing well. And when he committed to Florida, Miami was like, look, we're going to stay on you. We're going to continue to recruit you. And as we've been saying all fall, they are going to play the long game with Ben Hanks, go to the swamp, see what happens in their game against Florida. They beat the Gators pretty soundly, and they're 5-0 right now after an exciting win over Virginia Tech to open ACC play on Friday night. And talking to his dad played for Florida. He's like, you never know, is Napier going to leave? Who's going to replace him? They have clarity at Miami. They know what that looks like. They know who's going to be the head coach. They know a brand new facility's going in. They know that Miami's recruiting at a high level, and they know Miami's playing at a high level. Now, there's a lot of love for Florida in that house, there's a lot of love for Billy Napier and his coaching staff. I asked if he would pop back up for the Miami-Florida State game, and he said, yeah, there's a chance that Ben could be back at Miami for the Florida State game later as well.
All right. Well, guys, thanks for hanging out for another Recruit Reaction. If you're still here, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're going to be talking about these teams all week long, whether it be the inside scoop, the Wiltfong whip around, Phillip Duke's 5-star flex. It's all right here on the On3 Recruits channel. Steve, another wild weekend of college football. Thanks for hanging out with us.